Hi class, today we're looking at part 2 of Mastering Presentation. Specifically, we want to take a look at Microsoft PowerPoint. Now let's get into a brief recap of what we did in the last video. If you can remember, the first thing we touched on was what was a presentation. And if you can remember, we looked at presentation that we have to keep in mind who your audience is. We also looked at the evolution of presentation, keeping in mind different equipment that were used throughout the ages to facilitate presentation. We then took a look at what is a PowerPoint, and we said it was a software developed by Microsoft. After looking at what was a PowerPoint, we looked at 9 key terms for us to understand more about PowerPoint. We looked at what was a slide, what was placeholders, looking at the slide being the entire page, whereas your placeholders are sections reserved for pieces of information on your slide. We looked at the slide type, also known as the slide layout. Look at the themes that we can choose for the design of our PowerPoint. We looked at the difference between transitions and animations. We looked at the header and footer of our PowerPoint document. We also looked at the very useful tool of Slide Master, which allows us to set an overall design for our PowerPoint. And we also looked at speaker notes, which I noticed in the last quiz that some of you were a little bit shaky on. Remember, the speaker notes does not help the audience. The speaker notes, like the name says, is for the speaker. Now, Microsoft has developed 3 main views that we can see when we're in a PowerPoint presentation. We have the normal view, also known as the slide view. We have the slide sorter view, and we also have the slideshow view. Now, if you're looking at a more modern version of PowerPoint, you would see the reader view, but the reader view and the slide view are very similar. Now, the first one we want to take a look at is the normal view. Remember, it's also called the slide view. Now, this is the main view that you're going to see whenever you open a PowerPoint presentation. You would see it whenever you open a PowerPoint presentation, or you would also, if you want to switch back from another view, you can click on the View tab, or you can click on the icons that we'll learn about a little bit later on in the video. Now it says that you're going to see this view whenever you want to write or design your presentation. If you take a look at the image that I have here, notice that you would see, for example, the different slides that you have, and you can also see the slide that you're currently working with. Next, we have what is called the slide sorter view. Now, the slide sorter view says an exclusive view of your slides in thumbnail form. It gives an overall picture, making it easy to reorder, add, or delete a slide. For instance, take a look at the image that we have here. I have a pie chart in slide number 3, but after looking over my entire presentation, I may notice that slide number 3 would make more sense if it were in slide number 2 position. Using this view, I can easily drag and drop a slide from one position to another, making it more user-friendly, making it easier for my readers to follow. I can also add a new slide from this view or delete unnecessary slides. The third view we want to take a look at is called the Slideshow View. Remember, I said it's almost similar to what is called a reader view also. Now, in the Slideshow view, it takes up the full computer screen, whereas in the reader view, you can still see your task panes at the top and at the bottom. Now, it will show as the actual presentation would be showing. Now, the view I have here is as if though I had another screen that was projecting my presentation. Notice from this view, I can see the notes that I have made for this slide. I can see the slide that I'm currently on, and I can also see the upcoming slide. This diagram that we have here shows us key parts that we have to keep in mind when we are looking at a PowerPoint. The first part we want to keep in mind is the Outline tab. Now notice on the left of the screen, you would see, for instance, your slides in thumbnail form. But in this view, notice you're looking at the outline of your slideshow. This shows you the slide text in outline form. So you're not seeing the images, you're seeing, however, the words that you have placed onto your PowerPoint. It says at the top that you can find PowerPoint views on the View tab, in a Presentation view, and in Master Views group. So here you can switch from different views that you would want to look at in your PowerPoint presentation. Now, aside from looking at it in the View tab, remember I spoke about some icons that you can use instead to see the different views of your PowerPoint presentation. If you take a look at the bottom of the screen, we have that the main views are Normal, Slide Sorter, Reading, and Slideshow like we just discussed earlier. And these are all available from this position. We also have on the right the slide pane, which displays a large view of the current slide, and you can add text or images from this position. Now at the bottom, we discussed in an earlier video that we also have the notes pane. Remember, the notes pane is so the presenter can place notes that will be used to guide their presentations in the future. Now, we're looking at the interface of Microsoft PowerPoint, and many of the parts of the interface is similar to working with Microsoft Word. For instance, we have the Home tab, and we have different tabs. We have Insert tab, Design tab, and notice some newer ones that we have, Transition, Animation, Slideshow. However, the Home tab is used to set the formatting of the text in a document. Notice it consists of the clipboard group, the slide group, the font and paragraph group. We also have the drawing and editing tool groups. All these groups are grouped according to things that they have in common. For instance, if you're in a font group, you would see tools that will allow you to change your font styles or font types of the font that you'll be using in your presentation. Next, we have the slide thumbnail. And the slide thumbnail is used for displaying the slides of the presentation. So from this view, notice we said earlier that you can look at it either in thumbnail view or an outline view. When you're looking at the slide thumbnail, it is used to see exactly what is on each slide and what order they're coming in. Now you'll be able to move around the order using the navigation pane. It says in this area, it is the place where the slide thumbnails will be placed. So you can see your thumbnails from the navigation pane. Next, like working in Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word, you also have what is called your status bar. And we know in the status bar, we're going to see the status of the presentation. For instance, the comments, the notes, the zoom slider, and other shortcut buttons such as your view buttons. We next have the notes pane, and in the notes pane, like the name suggests, is where you'll be able to add text for you to follow during your presentation. Now next we have the view icons like we mentioned earlier, which allows you to view the shortcuts for the various view options. For instance, if you're in normal view or if you want to go to the slide sorter view. We next have the zoom slider, which is used for zooming in and zooming out of the slides, so you can see more detail if you zoom in or less details if you zoom out. You also have what are called sizing handles, and you want to keep these in mind. Notice those are the little dots that appear at different corners where you insert a text box or even when you insert an image. You see, the sizing handles is used for increasing or decreasing the size of placeholders or also the size of your slides. Now we also have what is called a slide pane, and it contains a slide in which data is being placed currently for your presentation. One last tool is a tool we're all familiar with, which is the title bar, and it displays the name of the presentation. For instance, we said by default, if you're working in Microsoft PowerPoint, the names will appear sequentially. For instance, you're going to start with presentation 1, followed by presentation 2. Now, on these slides that are on your handout, the only reason I placed them in the video is so that you can see exactly what the notes are that go along with the labeling. For instance, you can see the definition for what is the Home tab, the slide thumbnail, navigation pane, the status bar, your notes. And you can also see where the definitions lie for the view icons, your zoom slider, your sizing handles, slide pane, title bar. Now, aside from knowing the definitions of these tools, remember you also want to keep in mind the labels and where they fall on the Microsoft PowerPoint interface. Now, one of the last things we want to cover are 5 rules for more effective presentations. Now, remember, it's not about your software. It's not about using Microsoft PowerPoint. Hence, rule number 1, don't give your presentation software center stage. Remember, what are you trying to portray? That you can make a beautiful PowerPoint? No, your message is what you're trying to display. How you portray the message is more important than the software that you're using. Another rule that you want to keep in mind is to create a logical flow to your presentation. You don't want your audience to be thinking, is this the end? Are they finished yet? No, you want to see that we have an introduction, you reach a climax in your presentation, and you can then conclude your presentation, having your audience familiar at every step of the way as you're reaching towards your goal. The third rule for effective presentation is that you want to make your presentations readable. And I can't stress this fact enough. Some persons, they want to make font too large that it's overwhelming the presentation, or too small that your readers cannot see. You have to make it ideal for the reader. You have to make sure that your readers, even if they're at the back of the room that you're presenting, will still be able to see the content of your presentation. Rule number 4, and a very important rule. Remember, less is more. You don't want to overcrowd your presentation with too many words, too many images, too many videos, the audio is too loud, and all of the things are happening at once. You want to keep in mind what is the goal of your presentation. What information are you trying to portray, and how can you most effectively portray that information? The last rule that you want to keep in mind when you're making a presentation is that at the end of your presentation, you want to leave something that your audience can take away, because they won't remember everything you said. As much as you try, they're humans. So what you can do is distribute a handout. No, it's recommended that you distribute your handout at the end so your audience is paying attention to you and not to the handout that you just gave away. So let's review these rules again. Don't give your presentation software center stage. Your content and what you're presenting is most important. Create a logical flow to your presentation. Have your reader engage from beginning to end of your presentation. Make your presentation readable. Font must not be too small. Remember, less is more. You don't want to overcrowd it in your PowerPoint with too much information. And lastly, remember to give your audience something. Distribute a handout, and it's recommended that you distribute it at the end as to not to distract your readers or your audience. Now, what did we learn today? We learned first that there are 3 main views when working with Microsoft PowerPoint. We have the normal view, which is the view that you use by default. We have the slide sorter view, which allows us to either add, delete, or reshuffle slides. Or we could look at the slideshow view, which would place our PowerPoint in full presentation mode, which would be as if though we are presenting to an audience. We also look at the labeling of the interface, keeping in mind the 10 key areas that we want to pay attention to when we're labeling the interface. And we also took a look at the 5 rules for more effective presentation. Remember, your audience is the most important thing, that they get your message. Give them a handout. Don't overwhelm it too much information. Less is more. And you want to make sure that your information flows in a logical sequence that they can understand. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. I hope that you pay attention, rewatch if necessary, and there will be a quiz to follow. Thank you for paying attention.